right now I think we still have the wrong paradigm around AR, VR, right? Like we're still thinking about it the way we thought about like gameplay. I mean, I was thinking the other day, I'm looking right now at my desktop at that file folder on my desktop. When was the last time I handled a file folder, dude? We still hold on to that conception of what it means to manipulate information, right?
Hit! Yeah! These cabinets would never be this easy to climb in real life. This is the future of scrolling. My world is officially boundless. Ha!
Welcome to AVWeek, episode 735, recorded on September 19th, 2025. I'm Patrick Norton in for Tim Albright. On this episode, do augmented and virtual reality have a place in unified communications? And will it be anytime soon? The LED display market keeps growing, and is the future of AV programming something completely different? Joining us today, Brad Walker is a collaborating consultant for integrated systems design at Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard is a leader in acoustics and AV. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Happy Monday for everybody when they hear this.
Someone is on top of a calendar, and it is not me. Jeremy Caldera, Executive Vice President at Pearl Technology, offering IT solutions to businesses that help them flourish in a technology-driven world. I will not mention that you are a certified living legend, except I just did. Sir, welcome to the program.
That was a long time ago. I'm old now. Come on.
I thought you had to be old to be a living legend.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Josh Keller is an intergalactic design consultant currently stationed at CTI's Omaha, Nebraska office. CTI is the largest privately held AV integration and live events company in the U.S., now with UK offices, too. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you, Patrick. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. AV Magazine's latest, and I can't decide if this is one of those things that, well, this seems kind of obvious, or maybe for everybody it's kind of a shock, but global LED video display markets have grown 6.2% in Q2 of 2025, with public spaces, retail and sports, live events, and control rooms leading the way. They quote a market research report from Media that micro LED and mini LED pixel pitches are going down. Energy savings is huge, somewhere around 30% over the last couple models. Quality color is fantastic, even in direct sunlight. Is this what you folks are seeing, or is something more subtle going on here?
I'll say that from a designer point of view, design consulting point of view, I don't think there's anything more subtle going on. I think that at one point there was a conversation of, does this space have a display or does it have projection? And now it's not an either or conversation. We understand where each one is best applied, and the energy and drop in cost and durability of product, I think, are all things that have contributed to display growing. And also, I think, the phone is contributed to it. I actually have my phone in grayscale, because when I got it, I noticed that it was ultra saturated in terms of the colors, and I was like, that's not real life. But more of us are keeping our phones and screens in these ultra saturated resolutions, and so I think there's even a higher expectation from people in terms of what they see.
I think that's exactly it. It's the higher expectations, right? Because of what everybody's seeing day to day out there. For me, like you said, it used to be a conversation of projection or flat panel, but, flat panels have gotten large enough, your average use being a 98 without problem. They're lighter. You can install them easier. If they fit in an elevator, you can get them in pretty well, for most applications. And I think that delta that exists between, let's call it the next step up, being a direct view LED of a smaller pixel pitch like a 0.9 or 1.2, that starts to get you into that 110 inch, 130 inch range. So now you can start putting that in houses of worship, corporate. That delta shrinking, right? And so even high-end corporate, you talk about, okay, I want a 130 inch display. As soon as you get a really good projection system in there, well, now the delta is not even that much. 98 to 135 can be a little bit when you're talking flat panel direct view, but high-end projection to that, it's not. The costs have come down so much that it just doesn't make sense, because the quality is just light years beyond projection.
Yeah, I very, very much agree as well. I feel like a lot of what I'm seeing is not only is it coming down in price where people can afford it, but it's and my projector manufacturers that are listening, this is not a dig on you. Projectors at this point just seem like last year. And I have a lot of clients that they don't even want the look of a projector, even if the image is high quality. So with the cost coming down, lifespan being that much longer, I think for a lot of people, the first time you see it, you finally understand. I've had a lot of challenges in the past, not as much so now, but when I was first getting into this, you tell somebody the projector system is X and the DB LED is going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 times the cost. Well, if a CFO is looking at that, they don't even to see the rest of it. They just see the low number and they go with the low number. So I've had to take clients and CFOs specifically to site to actually see it. And once they see it in person, they understand it's completely different than just a better image.
All right. So IBC last week, one of the things, there was several companies at IBC last week, Visit being one of them, touting augmented reality. Visit was doing Visarita 6, their AR graphics production for sports. It allows people to roll in advertising. But there are apparently a whole flotilla of manufacturers at IBC that were talking about AR or VR for UC and VC presentations. So I'm just going to ask everybody point blank, do you see AR and VR being integrated in the average conference room environment or even organization outside of architecture or maybe certain civil engineering projects? Because I always see, whenever I see, something new in VR, AR, it's always an architectural firm. Do you see it being adopted? Do you see it necessary? Where are you guys feeling about AR and VR in corporate communications?
I love the idea. I think it's a wonderful idea until it's hands-free, glasses-free, headset-free. I have a hard time believing it's going to be anywhere. You're going to have so many people that spent time on their hair. They're concerned about how they're going to look. They don't want to put a headset on. They don't want to do AR glasses. So aside from us nerdy few that are probably listening to this, I think most of the common people out there don't want to go through that. And it's hard right now, even just in a video call, to get somebody to turn their camera on, much less have them put a headset on and feel like they don't know where they're at in space. So I love it. I hope it does come to fruition. I just have a hard time getting past the people side of it.
I think to the extent that these things are adopted in those scenarios as opposed to, production or art scenarios or entertainment, obviously with sports, the money around sports advertising is so big that you get to play with a lot of different things. But when it comes to, corporate communication, the simplest thing is always still the best thing. And whatever people are doing in terms of their personal devices, what's going to carry through, not what goes in the room. It feels more and more like the room is just a space and, IO is on the person. So to the extent that that's going to happen, I think if it's on the person and the person is amenable, but for most people, you really just don't need it. And, what is the point other than a press release when people don't really need it?
I'm on the fence on this one, right? I completely agree that the average everyday use case, I don't see it, at least not right now. Because I agree with you, Brent, it all comes down to simplicity, right? Things nowadays, I feel like, my client expectations, at least from my clients, are we want things to be easier. Easy. The easy button for everything, right? They don't want complexity, right? So if you're talking about these AR and VR technologies, they're cool. They're going to have their use case for sure for the specialty stuff, like you talked about, advertising and sports, things like that. But coming down to the everyday conference room, I'm going to say no. But big asterisk there. We don't know how easy that might become with software updates down the road for the average user and apps and things that might happen. And so I don't want to say that it could become popular, but the thing is, if you make that easy to use and you make that easy as part of your presentation, people will find the use case for it. Right. And people will, there's a lot of reasons now why I can't imagine why it would be what you could present or what you could do, but it's just because we don't have the tool in front of us that allows us to do X, Y, or Z. So I think as the, softwares and the apps and the usability move upward and move on and become more technologically advanced, I think people in general in the world of AV are gonna morph and find ways to make it useful. But I still think that's down the road several years.
Right? I agree. I think it's down the road. I think there's some stuff that's promising that we're starting to see. I know Sony's got a glasses-free 3D display that is honestly very, very good, but it's very small. So if you wanted to use that in advertising in your shopping center and want to have some advertising that really pop out, and we've seen all those corner video walls that kind of fake a 3D view on them. Now those are a little bit passe at this point, but when you can actually truly make it 3D and just have it up in a window while people are walking by, I think that's really going to grab some attention for a year or two, and then everybody's going to be used to it. But I think it's going to be big once it's glasses free and it's in a larger format.
Right now, I think we still have the wrong paradigm around AR, VR, right? Like, we're still thinking about it the way we thought about, like, gameplay, So we're the way that we see things today is in contrast to the way we're accustomed to experiencing things. And people who don't have that set paradigm in their head would feel very differently about it, including whether or not they felt like they had an emotional connection or, a quote, real experience with the person. And that whether we like it or not, we are carrying with us some thoughts about what real experience means. And other generations are not going to have those thoughts and may be able to let go of, I was thinking the other day, I'm looking right now at my desktop at that file folder on my desktop. When was the last time I handled a file folder, dude? But we still hold on to that conception of what it means to manipulate information, right? I heard this thing the other day where someone said, we know the earth revolves around the sun, and we still talk about sunrise and sunset as if the sun is moving.
Well, that's because it's hard to say rotational. Rotational. There's a physics phrase that essentially starts with rotational divergence towards and it's hard to change right, because once a paradigm gets set, or a metaphor maybe more accurately, right? Your desktop file folder is a metaphor that allowed information people to make this transition from big piles of paper to bits on a server. But we don't really want to tell them it's bits on a server, because that's really nerve-wracking if you've been filing things in triplicate for the last 25 years of your day with an IBM Selectric that can slam a typewriter key through a brick wall because it's got to go through 6 layers of carbon paper. There's a moment dating myself on audio.
I was like really bad, bad.
but you laugh. But I laugh because I've been here about the paperless office literally for more than half of my career, and it's still not quite there in a lot of places, right? So here's a question: How everybody on the panel? How do you feel about like Google Beam, which in some ways I think is like, okay, this has all the hallmarks of a killedbygoogle.com future entrant. If you've never been there, it's essentially a website that tracks every project that Google has started and then abandoned. But it also has one of those things where it's like it also reeks of the traditional consumer electronics curve, where 6 people can buy it when it because it's basically it's house money. It's $400,000-$600,000 an installation was one of the numbers I heard, where it starts out as being insanely expensive and no one can afford it, and then the technology is brought down over time. Has anybody experienced it? Does anybody have feelings about it? Is this kind of like the sweet spot to start bringing a more realistic environment into the corporate workplace? Bren, you've dying to say something.
I haven't experienced it, but what I will say, and I think this generally applies in my mind, is that what these things are good for is they may never result in an actual product that has wide adoption to people who are your late folks, right? But what you hope happens in the process is that there's some other discovery that is then applied to something else to improve something else that does have wider adoption. And, AV in my mind is woefully lacking in innovative development for the future. And this is at least one arena where that is happening. And hopefully other things will come from it that bloom for other uses or other products.
I think that's very true what you're saying, because a lot of what we have as technological tools are morphed from just consumer electronics driving what we do in the professional AV field, right? So you're going to get that, carryover there. And we in professional AV are not really driving too much towards the consumer side. Arguably, direct view LED, like we were talking about earlier, might be doing that, right? Because you're going to start seeing that come down in the home. But I think, like you said, it's that technological advancement that we may not experience 90% of it, but 10% is really awesome stuff's going to come down to our everyday life. So
yeah, I was able to see that at Infocom, and I was pretty sure I was going to hate it. Because it's always had an issue kind of getting past this uncanny valley feeling whenever I've been in anything like that. But it actually feel like it went pretty well. I hate to give them that, especially Google, but I think it did do a pretty good job. I just don't see the price point making it something that's going to be readily available for everybody. I think it comes down to what you get, maybe 2-3 people, maybe 4 at most. I think within there, I don't even think it's that many. And for the cost that you have there, maybe so you've got execs or you've got interview rooms maybe around the country, and you've got your HR department out in the Bay Area or something. I could see something like that, but it seems niche to me at that price point, not something that I'm going to see many people get into.
Patrick, before we go off of this topic, I want to say that the announcement about this Viz Arena 6 with AI inside, the real story there really is about the calibration, right? And how they improved calibration with some use of AI. These kinds of press releases are going to be increasingly meaningless. The expectation is that you are using AI it's not a question of production or any one field. The expectation is that you, if you're a going concern in 2025, are going to use AI to try to make something more efficient.
I have a complicated response to that, in part because, when I look at the AI, the implementation of AI, and I'm just going to outright say the abuse of AI when maybe machine learning or intelligent tools, I'm not quite sure how to, right? We all, AI, the word guessing program that is ChatGPT, right, is AI. And also, okay, AI allows me to track voices and switch cameras in Crestron's, latest state-of-the-art video conferencing system. And AI is also supposed to drive my car and everything else. But it's part of what fascinates me is like AI has become this sort of blanket term for anything that will make it better, despite how complicated or messy the situation is. Doesn't always work that way, but I have hopes. But is it is the question like part of my question is when we're looking at AI, whether it's an AV or anywhere else, does it automatically get a pass at being better? Because, there's been a huge, if you're not watching the video, Bren's head's shaking no right now.
I did a YouTube screen cap reaction.
It was a good reaction, right? But I think it's AI isn't as bad as, say, NFT or crypto when I see a headline, right? But yeah, all the heads are nodding now. But I look at certain things and I see AI, and my first response is, great. Here's another thing that they're going to sell and they're going to force on me, and it may or may not actually work, and it may or may not actually improve the situation, and I may or may not actually be a cynic after 30-odd years in technology. But, is it... it seems to be working for their systems, right? And then I could point out that ever since AT&T has implemented AI in place of a traditional, call center for my internet service, I've gone from being able to get an answer in, generally 3 minutes after I get through the call queue to an infinite loop where I can't actually contact anybody or get any information that allows me to fix my internet issues because the super advanced AI bot can't actually do anything useful in the AT&T app. Obviously, that's a little specific, but, but literally, they had a functional human-based system that could solve my problems, or at least tell me that, yes, it's broken on this end, we can roll a truck. to me having to go from my phone app, which is supposed to be the center of the universe, to finding, an actual 1-800 number buried on AT&T's website so I can call them, so I can actually talk to someone who can actually implement the control, because there's only so many times you see I can reboot my fiber modem and my router and get no improvement before I really want to talk to a technician that can tell me what's going on in the back end, right? Now, I'm a little bitter about this week because I had fiber go out 4 times in 5 days.
Right.
Obviously they were basically, updating some hardware. They no longer bothered to tell people about this or expect it. So it was super problematic to the point where I was pricing out alternatives, right? But at what point as companies, it's great that they're improving the ability to calibrate VR, but in other cases, how do we sort this out, this whole AI thing inside the AV industry, outside the AV industry?
It's time, Patrick. It's just going to get there. I mean, these are what the models are like now, and it's been available for 2 or 3 years. It's been available for a lot longer, just maybe not for everybody. But it's only a matter of time. It's this good and bad. This far into it, 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, it's going to be completely different. Everybody always says it's going to be completely different, but having young kids, I'm like, I don't even know what career to push them into or recommend they go into, because what's going to be around by the time they're into it, I don't even know. But I think it's going to keep improving, right?
I don't know if accounting is still looking solid, but nursing is still looking solid.
Well, nursing, and I would follow what the CEO of NVIDIA said and do biology and biotech engineering, because we're going to focus our attention on humanity and what we're made of is the increasing attention approach. I would say that AI is both NFT and blockchain. So,
That's a great answer.
Like, blockchain is a real thing that has really great application.
Yeah.
And NFTs are what they are. People get swept up. So focus on the parts that are blockchain-like. And I got to say that, the coding capability of some of the tools now has really gotten good. Really gotten good. And people who code are seeing this, right? Because they're spending less time, typing characters.
100% agree. I've got a buddy of mine who does coding directly, and that's his job. And I've asked him, are you worried? He's like, well, maybe a little bit, but it's like right now we're already using it. Like, we use it as a resource within our company, approved resource to help with coding.
Right.
And it's helping us, troubleshoot and get through things and get the basic code out that much faster. I used it recently to get a few things installed on my PC that I was doing through PowerShell, and I'm not a PowerShell guy, I don't know, but I can copy and paste, and I did that, and when it failed, I put it back into AI, and it told me, well, you did this wrong, and eventually we got there, but it's just getting better and better. I think it's going to stay around.
Exponentially getting better and better.
Ways we have
Yep.
see.
And way faster than
rate.
anything we've seen in our lifetime in terms of the improvements. So
it is fascinating to watch. One last question before we go. Josh, you kind of introduced us on what's the future of AV programming? This is not so much an AI-oriented question, but Rave's Mark Coxon got deep on the challenges in delivering something that end users will actually adopt over at Rave Pubs this week. I
don't think we have enough time for this. I need like 4 hours for this.
Right? Yeah, this is a big conversation, and we're going to piss off a lot of people, I think. But.
Well, let's do the high-speed, low-drag version, since I apologize. I got us into AI a little too deep, or maybe I just talked too long. But, is the secrets getting the concepts and the programmers in the process early? My thought is, duh, you should always get the people that are building your system involved early so they can point out things like, well, yes, the wheels go on the bottom and the shiny part goes on the top. But, what are you guys thinking about this? Obviously, Josh and Jeremy, you are ready to leap in, and I'm sure Bren's right there with you.
Well, it goes back to our previous conversation about AI, too. How is AI going to, affect what he's talking about, and how is it going to interpret what the user wants to see? So, I mean, there's going to be some transitional stuff happening there over the next couple of years in the programming world, at least for what we're seeing. But right now, I'm still seeing, like I said, user simplicity. Why are we still talking about page flips and code? You know what I mean? his point about using the remote control out of the drawer, right, was very striking to me, because I've seen that happen so many times, when they don't adopt the nice shiny touch panel. Well, why? Well, the touch panel is harder to use, and it shouldn't be.
It is
right?
perfectly
It's
intuitive to the person that built it, who doesn't talk to people who don't build things.
Yes. It's all about simplicity. Now, how AI will interpret that and start doing our coding for us down the road, I don't know, but I think there's a lot to be said about that, and we've been having this discussion since I've been in the industry. So it's just crazy. But I think that there's a lot to be said there to just simplify things. We need to really adopt what we're doing and user simplification. So
years ago, it was put every feature that you could possibly think of on the touch panel. I want to control every single anything. I want to control the VCR through my touch panel. And we've seen that change considerably. And then it was, well, how do we marry this with Teams, and how do we marry this with Zoom and make everything work well? And at least for me and most of my clients, we don't really fight Teams and Zoom anymore. We kind of lean on them. That is your UI. That's what you're going to experience, not only in your organization, but when you use Teams somewhere else. So it's going to feel very, very familiar to them. And then trying to figure out what they really need. It's not putting every button and every feature on there, because people are just going to walk away and not understand. Even if you say exactly what it does on the touch panel, people don't want to press it. It's going to turn off the system or something. I don't know what they're exactly concerned about, but they're very reticent to use them.
One thing we've been preaching about for years is enterprise standardization and user adoptability. So as much as we sometimes hate our Zoom rooms and MTR rooms, the one thing Microsoft did and Zoom did was kind of force somewhat of a consistent user interface across the board. So it's no longer about enterprise standardization. It's just standardization, right? So you can go from one company to the next company and your MTR panel is going to look darn near similar, right? It's not just about that. It's not just in one company or within one framework. It's kind of across the board. So it should not be admitting this, but I'll give them credit where credit's due in the term of adoptability of user experience and touch panels. So
when you're voluntold you have to use it, everybody will use it.
Well, that did force that definitely was a factor in this. Is you are voluntold that you have to use this, so we kind of had to adopt. Right?
Outside of conference rooms, I do a ton of conference rooms. I do a lot of Teams and Zoom, but outside of that, when you're just programming something completely different, you need advanced room controls. You need something that's not a conference room. To your point, they do need to be included from the beginning, or at the very least, if it's sold, then still bring them into a programming meeting. Okay, what do you want this to do? Is it just you that wants it to do that? Do you need end users to use it? Who is going to be using it? Is it my mom coming in to use it because she's not going to want to touch any buttons on there? How do you make that work? And can you make it one touch or no touch for a lot of the things that are being needed? So it is programmed, but maybe no touch panel at all, and it's working off occupancy sensors, or it's working off something else to pull the triggers.
So I have a slightly different point of view. I've been doing AV at Kierkegaard for 7 years, and roughly, and I've been with the firm for 12. What I noticed when I started to work with AV was a very silly divide between consultants and integrators. To the point where, I hear consultants bad-mouthing integrators. I hear integrators complaining about design consultants. And to me, all of it seemed really kind of ridiculous, right? Programming in my world is the same as it is in architecture, because over time, I have pushed my way into the programming meetings on my projects. When I started, we would typically for AV be engaged 50% design development, because the idea was that for schematic design, you're figuring out what chunks of space are going where, and you don't really need AV at the table because AV is just going to put their stuff in the room, right? Well, now people recognize that AV can influence schematic design, because what's going to go in that room actually does determine where it's going to be in the building, and what height of ceiling it should have, and what the shape should be, if you actually want things to work well, right? So in my world, AV programming starts with architectural programming. And I will say this, if you're an integrator out there and you are frustrated by the fact that you get a drawing set at bid and you have no other information that you're working with, and you then just try to, muscle your way through. If you want to work with someone who is willing to bring you into the process at programming and schematic design, call me. Because I actually believe that
Am I allowed to call you on projects that you're not the lead on?
Yeah, you are. Because here's the thing. We've been wasting for ourselves and our clients 2 sets of drawings that we produce. Why? Right? Instead of, I'm there early.
The way we've always done it.
Because we've always done it that way, right? And, my skill set is different from the designer at the integration firm. And we need both of them. Because I'm talking architectural language with people about things that are not that fine detail yet. And when you bring the fine detail into those early meetings, they look at you like, why are you here? Because they're still talking about things in a conceptual way, right? In AV in general, we have to talk about things, we have to get more comfortable with talking about things conceptually and letting go of our engineering need to talk about things specifically. And the one thing that Mark and I have talked about this, because I have a dream of working on projects with Mark where I've taken the project through schematic design and we are starting design development together. And I am sharing with him the profiles that I've done and the personas and the people that I've talked to. And I want to give him all of my notes. Here's everything that I talked with the client about, and let's together use an AI tool that draws out insights that matter to you and matter to me. Now, before I deliver the 100% DD set, I've heard from you and you've given me some feedback. Before I deliver the bid set, I've heard from you and you've given me some feedback, and your presence is now into those documents that are ultimately going to determine what's going to get.
Bren, how do you, so I'm on the integrator, but we do the design consulting as well, and I've been on the front end working with architects going through SD, DD, all the way through. And it is often when I'm brought in on a bid where we did not design it, there's a butting of heads, right? There's the consultant wanting to prove that they've got value and they know what they're talking about. The AV integrator often is trying to say the consultant doesn't know what they're talking about. Trust me, I'm the right person. And I've tried to approach it kind of in the middle, be like, I don't know you yet, depending on who the consultant is, but we need to work together to make this work well for our client. How do we make each other look good as opposed to both trying to tear each other down? Now, how do you bridge that with integrators that come in that assume that you're going to tell them they did everything wrong and their labels are wrong and the cable should have been this way or that way? How do you handle that on your end?
Yeah, well, 2 things. First of all, where I can, I encourage the client to not wait for a bid process to bring an integrator on. So where I can, I get the client to think about bringing the integrator on while we are still in design. And instead of making it a choice of who gave me the lowest number, make the choice based on who's the most qualified and who's going to fit into this existing design and construction team that I have, right? Because now communication can be better if we've made sure that we've got the right kind of player in doing the integration, even though that work isn't going to come for them for another 12 or 18 months maybe.
I'm all about this, and I love this concept, but I think there's too traditional of a purchasing procedural thing that's happening that people are not. You want to talk about trying to steer the ship.
Purchasing's got to prove their value now too.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's easy, right? But I'm saying to you on the projects where we've been able to do it, the result has been so much better for the client because there isn't this moment of the integrator looking at a set that we put together and immediately trying to find the things that show, okay, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Instead, they've seen it as we've evolved it. So now our conversation is not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about what's changed out there that we need to now reflect. And what have you done in some of your recent work that we can now make this system better because you figured out a better way to route video, right, on another project. So that's one way. I think the other way is that we have to support each other. You have a successful project, Like, recognize the person who you and the firm that you had that successful project with. There's one of your competitors who I've worked with, and we had a very tense project in Nashville, and it was bad for everybody, right? But we had subsequently, a couple years later, we had another project as we got to the point of like, okay, this is a bid situation. I'm looking at those people thinking, I had a horrible experience with them last time, but I am not going to say to the client, I had a horrible experience with them. We should not even consider their proposal. Instead, I talked with the person at a conference and just said, you know what, that last experience we had, let's not replicate that. Let's try, whenever we're going to work together again, to actually work together and to be collaborative. And if you'll commit to that with me, I'll commit to you that I'm not going to trash you to this client, which I could do, but they have two other choices that would be great, right? So
I admire you giving them a second chance, because you burned me like that. I wouldn't do it.
yeah, well, okay, but you know what the result was? The result was one of the best integrations that we had as a firm. And I was more than happy to tell everybody how great they were. And I'm more than happy to tell clients who are like, I don't have anybody that great in my region. You know what? These people are worth flying in. That's how good they are, you know? So I just think that we have no reason to be at odds with each other. And we're really not demonstrating our value when we try to pull someone else down, right? Like, let's together eliminate AV fails. So anyway, that's sort of a long...
No, I think it's a good summary, because I teach my children, take the high road. You'll always look better, you'll feel better, and gosh darn it, it's easier to throw rocks downhill. You know, you hope you don't have to. You hope you don't have to, but I kudos to giving them a second chance, because that's a really hard thing to do in life, much less at business.
They earned it. Yeah. You know what though? I'll say about this is that everything that was happening with the situation, it was no one company's fault. It was no one person's fault. And when things got contentious, people did what they do, which is to protect themselves and to go into their corner. And my whole point with them was like, let's not do that again, right? Let's just not do that. And we can choose not to do that. And candidly, when I run into people at integration firms who are still holding on to this notion of us against them, it's like, yeah, your mindset is in a place that I don't want to talk to you, right? Like, I'd rather talk with somebody who is recognizing that the best thing for our field is to do what Mark is saying, to do it from the beginning, and whoever the players are who can result in getting the best system and the best user experience for the client, let's support each other in making that happen. So,
and less glass in conference rooms, please.
Oh my God. Oh my God. But you know what? Here's the thing. That's like, you would be shocked at how sometimes it's really easy to get architects to not make that choice because there was just someone there to say it.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And to remind them of why that choice is bad. All you got to do is take them to wherever they are, whatever city they're in, take them to that office that has that same glassy conference room and say, remember last time you had a meeting here? and it works. It works. They're not trying to make things bad. They're just, trying to use the language they have to express what they think matters in a workplace, like transparency.
I'm digging it. I'm also flashing back to an office I saw many, many years ago that was for a shipping company out of Korea. And nobody was allowed any personal items on the desk. They had tandem desks all the way across. Your unit leader had a giant glass window with blinds, I'm told, were never actually closed, so they could look down the row of people they were responsible for to monitor their productivity at all times. which I don't know how you do visually with 20 people in a long row of desks, but I am also not an executive at a shipping company. And then the big desk at the end in the big elevated office, also with a glass wall, looked over everything. So I think there's a thin line between, transparency and just flat out terrifying your workforce.
One last thing that I just thought of regarding the whole procurement thing, right? And the finance person making the decision about the number. I think that one of the things that process of saying, let's identify the integrator early, let's make them a part of the team, is to be able to say to those people, we're going to be able to give you better numbers earlier. And we're going to be able to help you with your planning for your budget. This project doesn't open for 3 years, but we're going to be able to give you better numbers. So when we actually get to the point of making these purchases, short of things in the economic world doing what they do, we're going to be in a pretty good delta so that you can trust the number that you've been carrying forward all this time. So helping them do a better job of forecasting, right, is one way of getting buy-in, I think.
Well, as far as that's concerned, Brent, if you ever need anybody, I'm really good at working with consultants. I make you look good. This will be a symbiotic relationship.
Let's
I can
do
see
it,
it. I can
dude.
see it now.
Let's do it.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to wrap this episode of AV Week. Josh, where can people find you if they want to hear what you have to say on the internet or see what you're doing?
On LinkedIn, you can get me at CTI, josh.keller@cti.com, or I'm likely in your backyard. I travel quite a bit. So reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Jeremy, are you sharing your presence on the social medias, or do you prefer to stay hidden? How can people find you?
No, you can find me just about anywhere. I'm on, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, the Facebook, all that jazz. Or pearltechnology.com is where you can find us. So,
Bren, where can folks find you if they want to learn more about what you're up to on the internet?
Bren at Kierkegaard.com and like once a month on LinkedIn, Brenda J. Walker. But I am a big believer that social media needs to pay content creators for what they do. And until they do, they get no content from me.
That's okay. I've made content my whole life, and I'm down with being paid for it. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 735 of AV Week. Bren, Josh, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Patrick Norton. Tim Albright will be back next week. And thank you again for joining us on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's Estate of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out Estate of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.